Hello and welcome to the first video in the coverage of Louisville Cube League Season 4. As this is the first draft of the season, I'll give a quick overview of our league before we get into the actual draft and the games. Basically, we schedule a draft day every 2 weeks where we do anywhere from 1 to 3 cube drafts. At the end of 5 months, so May in the case of this season, we will filter down to 8 participants for our Cube Invitational based on the following criteria. The top 4 qualifiers are the participants with the most points from their top 8 draft finishes. So no matter how many drafts they've played in, only their best 8 finishes are counted. The 5th through 8 seeds in the Cube Invitational are the 4 participants with the most total points who did not qualify for one of the 4 previous slots. While the complete format of the actual Cube Invitational is still a work in progress, we'll definitely have some updates as the season goes on and we get closer. With that, let's go ahead and shift our focus to today's actual draft. This was from our first Cube Day of the season, and we had a whopping 12 players, which is our highest attendance ever. 8 of us participated in the vintage Cube draft you're about to watch, while the other 4 drafted a tempo tuber that one of our other members has. So today we'll be watching Prose drafting the vintage Cube, and then we'll watch 3 matches in a King of the Hill format, meaning that our final match will be for the 3-0 in this draft, no matter how Prose does. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and bring in the rest of the commentary crew and jump into the draft.
Hello. Getting into the draft, my name's Joey.
And I'm Prose, the drafter.
And I'm the one sitting directly to Prose's right, so I'll be passing him this entire draft. And Prose, what are the big things you're looking at out of this opening pack? I see Flash.
This pack was kind of loaded. Yeah, there was like Flash, Tameo, Psychic Frog, Mana Drain.
Yeah.
I went with the Flash. I thought it would be the best card to take while not locking myself completely into blue, while sending a lot of those other signals to the left. Nothing in this pack stood out, so we just went with an early Cogwork Librarian on this pick.
Also crucial to note that opening Flash means that nobody else at the table knows you have Flash, so you're more likely to be past some of the bigger, maybe like more Flash exclusive kind of monsters.
Already see a Tratza in this pack. Yeah.
Yeah, and Flash is such an easy thing to just. If Flash is the only blue spell in my deck, I don't really care. So, Atraxa immediately Vaultborn Tyrant here as well.
There's an Oath we could potentially build 2 in the pack if it comes back around too.
Yeah, Oath's one that's definitely gonna come back most of the time. So
yeah, vibes were very high at this point with Flash 2 premier Flash targets. So yeah, this pack didn't have a ton. I wasn't entirely sure what lane I wanted to be in outside of Flash. There were a few things here with the Metamorph. I just went with Once Upon a Time. Fairly willing to just draft green. Yeah,
it's a great pick in a Flash setup, I think.
Yeah, so this pack was kind of tough. There was Torsten and Jace. Just gonna go ahead and cash in the Cogwork Librarian for them. My thought there with the Librarian is that, passing it in this pack means it maybe gets taken and gets back to me in the next pack, honestly, with it coming back to the right. But also those 2 cards were just both things that I really wanted.
Right, and the rest of that pack wasn't stellar, so there's always a chance it gets taken right away, which I'm pretty sure it did right on the other side.
Yeah. That pack was choosing between Breeding Pool and the blue-green Surveil land, whose name I can't remember. I went with the Breeding Pool. Not entirely sure if that's correct or not, but Hedge Maze, that's it, yeah.
At some point,
Worm.
Surely we'll run out of Flash creatures. There might be too many at some point.
Nah.
Well, and this is what I was talking about too, because this late in the pack, it would be irresponsible for Joey to pass a Worldspine Worm if he knew that you had Flash. But because you opened it, there's no care at all for Joey to just ship that on past, and it's a premier hit. It's one of the best Flash targets. So.
So picked up an Omnath there in the middle. I was kind of hedging towards red in my mind because if Sneak Attack existed, I would love to have it in this deck. So Omnath fit that mold a good bit. That's kind of the same reason that red-white land gets taken there. Helps cast Omnath. Is just a red land that draws a card if nothing else. Oath did make it back, but I don't think I was interested at this point, knowing I was going to be seemingly mana dork green deck. So
Both not good when you're flipping a Birds of Paradise or whatever.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, just getting a few pretty good late picks there. Devoted Druid and Raging Ravine for a little bit of red fixing were both super nice.
Right, passing cards you wouldn't mind picking, so it says you're in the right lane.
Yeah, this pick was tough. Misty Rainforest versus Strip Mine. I think I just went with the fixing here with Omnath in my deck, and Strip Mine didn't really seem like the green lane I was in at the time. Speaking of Birds of Paradise.
Of note, no cogwork in that pack, which meant nothing too insane got opened to your left to
Yeah,
immediately put it back in.
which is impressive because
Past the
this
third
Oko
pick to
here.
Oko. Yeah.
Yeah.
But everything's lining up pretty well. Your deck is looking extremely good so far.
I
Short
believe
some power, maybe, but,
Yeah, I believe the
hard to
Cogwork
complain.
might be back. Yeah, it's back in this pack, but we wanted the Noble Hierarch, so we just let the Cogwork go. Although I don't believe it went far. We had a running joke during the draft that I don't think that the Cogwork Librarian left myself and the drafters to my left and right immediately. So
Yes, I picked it up right away on the other side.
Bloodbraid
Bloodbraid
over Gut
Challenger.
is interesting here.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I wasn't super sure that I would be like a gut angle red deck. Although really, I mean, with all the dorks, it's probably totally fine.
Right,
Um,
and
I have a soft spot for Bloodbraid Challenger. I'll admit it.
land's continuing to do really well here, though. Enjoy picking up things to make that white part of the splash a little bit easier.
Yeah, at this point, putting Omnath in my deck doesn't even seem like a question. It seems like it's gonna be really easy to cast it. Um,
Yeah, well, and going back to that Misty versus Strip Mine pick, like if you had any
yeah,
illusion of playing Omnath in your deck, then you definitely want to fetch land there for a number of reasons.
hmm nothing exciting in this pack. I think the Unholy Heat is probably the pick, but
Nashova Brawler, the only other one that maybe was worth
yeah,
thinking about, but yeah. A little
dig through
surprised
time there.
to see Dig over Haywire Might there.
Yeah, honestly,
Doesn't
Haywire
seem
Might
like
wasn't even on my radar. Now that you're saying it, but
just seems like it'll be difficult to get Dig online without some cantrips or something.
hmm took the Nantuko there. Thought it would be cute with a card like Worldspine Worm or Volborn Tyrant. Also, very willing to pick a Nadu if it shows up. I don't have like Safekeeper or Greaves yet, but
But you're in the right colors, so might
yeah.
as well stay open to it over a
And
middling pick like Oracle or
yeah, exactly. And even without Nadu, I mean, the Nantuko just does so much work. And if just a couple throwaways there, Hogak and Seething Song.
Seething Song is not a throwaway, especially if you end up with a sneak attacker through the breach.
Sure, sure,
That's a
sure.
playable magic card.
Just the fetchable lands continuing to flow in here. There's that Librarian. Although
Yeah, I
believe
was just
that
about to say I would like another fetch land, and then you just open one in this pack.
yeah, I really wanted to pick up the Librarian, but the fetch land is just really hard to say no here. I think the Llanowar Elves is interesting, but almost certainly going to table with what we've seen from the other green cards up to this point.
wouldn't mind getting some kind of card selection. I know we've seen Preordain go by, not too many other cantrips, though, just something to make it easier to find that flash.
Yeah, I was really excited about that Mana Vault, and then Natural Order was in the back of that pack, and was not going to say no to that with Atraxa and Vaultborn Tyrant and Torsten. So
There's some selection. Mystical Tutor. Yeah.
got Mystical Tutor on the team. So yeah, nothing super exciting, it looks like, in this pack. Pretty late Retrofitter Foundry. Not really something I'm interested in, but was something that I noted. This looks like kind of another nothing pack. Galvanic Discharge. Go with the Unholy Heat, I guess, is just some potential spot removal.
Was that the gate?
That is the Talon Gates, yeah, which I believe was the pick here.
Nothing too exciting in this pack.
Cryptic Command in there, but yeah, no, I wasn't willing to go down that road. I don't know how hard it would have been to cast, but
Yeah, I was gonna say your mana seems good, but blue 1. I don't know that it's that good.
I really wanted to take this Ponder, but I was also really happy to see that Tameo wheel. Basically, the same reason that I kind of wanted Jace in the deck was I wanted ways to recycle like the Flash and the Natural Order if I needed them.
Right. Normally, recycling Flash isn't one of the ones we think about with Tameo, but you have so many big guys like we talked about.
Exactly.
Definitely seems worthwhile.
Seems like I was considering that Walking Ballista. I'm not really sure why. I didn't have like I had Devoted Druid, but I didn't have any way to make infinite mana with it. Just the 13th pick Ancient Tomb was...
Yeah, that's a wild one. That can't be correct.
Yeah. And then we ended up with the Cogwork Librarian staying in the corner for the rest of the draft. So pretty happy with how that came together after the pick 1 Flash, and this is where the deck ended up. So yeah, Joey mentioned maybe having too many Flash targets. I don't feel like that was the case. 4 is a lot, maybe, but...
imagine if you had a sneak attack in your deck, though.
Imagine if I had a sneak attack in my deck. That's true, yeah.
With 2 Flashes, though, effectively, after getting the Mystical, I think it's fine at that point.
Well,
especially since some of them are castable.
Yeah, well, they're all castable. We have the Proving Grounds to make black mana for the Atraxa.
And then Reverend Triumph for white, Temple Garden.
Yeah, Birds of Paradise as well in there, so...
You're not casting Worldspine Worm. Get out of here.
Worldspine Worm, I think, might be the only one that I didn't actually cast throughout this draft. So, yeah, you're correct.
But like,
you say that, though, but there's Fanatic of Ronus. Like, that is a lot of mana.
Right. Fanatic of Ronus, Nissa, and Omnath go a long way to allowing you to do some pretty crazy mana stuff. Unfortunately, only 2 fetch lands, I believe, for the Omnath, but...
Yeah, only 2 fetch lands.
Still, the possibility of getting a big mana boost off of those. Still, probably not Worldspine Worm mana, but it makes sense that a lot of the other ones could easily be castable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the deck looks good. It's Vintage Cube, so you're always looking for, a Mox here or a Lotus there, but short of those, you have Flash and a lot of big targets, good mana dorks, good like planeswalkers and stuff. I would be totally happy to go into battle with this.
Yep, yeah, no complaints. Well, some complaints when I saw how much power some of the other people at the table had, but maybe we can see some of those in the matches. All right, so getting into my first match here against Brian. Don't honestly remember much about this match. It looks like Brian's on a mulligan here, and I'm on the play, so...
On the play, mana dork, opponent mulliganed.
And surveils into their graveyard. So
we have an upkeep Flash.
Yeah.
Seems like this is exactly the way you drew this deck up, and it's playing out beautifully in the first couple of turns here.
Also, Brian's kind of exactly the opponent you want to run into because he's playing a very fair deck. Everything's kind of going to be on board for the most part, playing kind of just all the colors, it looks like. But
yep, fetch land.
An embarrassing shuffle your deck presented and then immediately shuffle it again. We got to take some points off for that.
So this is an upkeep Flash. I didn't want to have to discard any of these cards. Didn't feel like I was at risk of getting countered versus the black red dual land there. Although
yeah. It seems like the appropriate time to try and resolve that card.
Yeah, so it looks like Dig Through Time and Escape to the Wilds are the only instant and sorcery. Talon Gates for a land. Hit both planeswalkers. Incredibly unlucky, clearly.
We're picking Tamiyo because we want to maybe flash again at some point.
Yeah.
Is the idea.
Yep, Tamiyo gets the flashback, among other things. Although the bat here.
Right. Also, when you're picking up Dig Through Time, Tamiyo is one of our few ways of actually loading the graveyard to make that Dig Through Time easy to cast. And could possibly find us our natural order for a bit of another power upgrade.
It's got a lot of benefits in this deck. And rightly so, Brian selects it as his card for the bat.
Yeah, but I think he's going to have a hard time dealing with Omnath if we're able to play Omnath, but the mana doesn't quite cooperate, it doesn't look like.
Yeah, Talon Gates.
Not the best for that. We did draw Tribal Flames, though, to get rid of the bat.
Sure, and the Devoted Druid lets you play Omnath next turn without even playing a land, so if we happen to draw our second fetch land, then we can really pop off there. So pretty efficient turn.
Yeah, we're also, unless he has another way to get Tamiyo out of our hand, we're casting Flash again next turn with Vaultborn Tyrant. Spooky Demonic Tutor.
Yeah, but having played a land for the turn already and not having a black mana, I'm not afraid of like our Tamiyo for Flash plan getting interrupted. We don't have a thing to flash in though, right?
There's a Vaultborn Tyrant, because I remember
okay.
I remember having to choose between the two of them. Yeah, and Brian. I think Brian mentioned that he had counted my mana that turn and thought I had one less, so I couldn't Tamiyo and Flash, but that was not the case. So
Devoted Druid messing up that math, but also just drawing a land there would have done that.
Yeah. My turn to take a
moment. And if you're new to our channel here, Brian is not someone who sticks around in a game. He'd feel like he's losing. He's just out of there. So expect when he is losing very quick concessions.
Yeah, and he knew about the Vaultborn Tyrant as well, so he knew what was coming there.
And again, he's playing very fair Magic, so it's not like he could DT for something that could have gotten him out of that situation. Looking over his deck, I'm not seeing anything that would have really managed to stand up to a Carnage Tyrant from an empty board position.
Another kind of unfortunate bat from him here. He's Galvanic Discharge, so whatever he takes, probably not gone for very long.
Well, in this instance, you're supposed to just take the removal spell, I think. But maybe he wants you to sort of waste some of your mana. Although, just without playing any other cards, kill your bat, play my mana guy is a pretty easy sequence for you, I would imagine.
Right, but it takes up more of your total mana on the turn to do that line, so saves him from the more explosive.
For sure, yeah. But, I mean, it does keep me from doing anything but playing the bird this turn, basically, which...
But I guess if you had explosive stuff... Yeah, if you had explosive stuff, you don't need the bird back anyway, so maybe you should have just taken the removal spell there.
A 1/1 flying lifelinker is not nothing. Like, I just think it's better to make you top deck another removal spell, essentially.
I assume that Spellbomb came in out of the board, and I do like that from Brian. Just even though it doesn't do anything against Flash, he could assume we're on Through the Breach or
Bloodbraid Challenger not at its best here with this with this cascade so far, but think we hit 3 of the 4 flash targets and a Nissa, but Oko is nothing to complain about, so.
Right. If we do draw natural order, on the bottom's where we want those cards anyway.
Mm-hmm. So I think I remember being in the tank here because I really wanted to elk that frog, which does look like what's going to happen. He only had 2 cards in his hand, which does let him make it a 5/5, but we are attacking with a 5 power creature here, so.
Yeah, I like the discard from Brian though because it lets him immediately threaten your Oko. You know, if you don't chump block here, it's just a clean kill.
Well, he can,
and he has the spell bomb.
He has this, yeah. So
yeah, so that's good heads up play for Brian.
Yep. So Oko not going to win the game on its own. Escape to the Wilds.
Great card to play when your opponent is empty-handed with just a 5/5 vanilla in play.
Have already played my land this turn like a fool.
But doesn't Escape allow extra lands?
It does. It allows 1 extra land. You can play them until the end of the next turn, so not all is lost. It's just, you know.
Right. I was just doing the count to make sure we're going to be able to cast this Torsten if we want.
Oh, yeah. If we want to cast Torsten next turn, we will be able. So we just got the Tropical Island Hierarch back out, and then sent our 5 power creature across.
Yeah, Brian needs a big draw here. He's threatening to get buried very quickly. And like I said, he does not care to sit there and be buried. He's just out here.
Yeah, I'm looking at his deck list right now. He has no outs really to Torsten resolving.
Yeah.
He could try to nickel and dime back in, but you've got a grip full of cards and a lot of other stuff to do. So there was no way he was getting back from that position.
So yeah, pretty happy overall with how the deck performed there. Did pretty much exactly what I pictured on pretty much every front.
Yeah, it's good. First outing. Let's see if that carries through to the next match.
All right, second match here is against Pellman. I honestly had no clue what he was even playing. I hadn't gotten to see any of his previous match.
I was going to accuse him of encroachment with where he first put that island, but then he even scoots it forward on untap. Just both of you slowly scooting cards forward, encroaching
Trying to
towards the
assert
center.
dominance, that's all. So Fringe Gadgeteer. Oh, okay. I was going to say I haven't done anything in 2 turns, which is kind of upsetting, but we just drew Flash again.
A bunch of cards and 7/1/1s.
Yeah.
But you know, as far as turn 2s go, that's pretty solid.
This is the draw 7 Flash with Torsten, so not too shabby there.
But last game we saw Atraxa just as a draw spell, essentially, just finding a bunch of cards. This one, leaving behind all those creatures, means you get to start attacking, put some pressure on. Gadgeteer usually implies some pretty unfair things coming from the other side, so I would definitely want to start getting in there, dealing damage as fast as possible.
Looks like Fanatic? Yeah, Fanatic of Ronus. And then, yep, all the little gremlins getting in there. Gadgeteer's going to eat one of them, but
Gets begun.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless with Torsten, those 1/1s probably just start munching. But seeing Gadgeteer especially kind of sets off the we need to get this over with fast.
Yeah, right. Speaking of, the pace of play does not like scream that he has Basalt Monolith in hand ready to go, but you know that's got to be something you're thinking about at any point here. He could just, you know, play a Monolith, get infinite mana, and you know do something gross with that.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly where Pellman was in the draft, but I do remember that I didn't think he could have the Walking Ballista that I saw. I think only 2 people to my left could have seen it, so I was pretty sure he didn't have Walking Ballista. But what
he does have is a Mox Emerald into a Soul Ring, which is a pretty huge jump in power.
Especially taking as long as he did to think about it ahead of time, like, that is scary. Realizes he doesn't need all his mana this turn, so was going to take a look to see if he found something better before casting Jace, another card that implies very unfair things on the horizon. Choosing to mill you.
See, you thought I would have trouble casting my dig through time, but look at that graveyard.
That is very fair.
Wow,
The
and
Fanatic
an
gets
oust.
ousted.
That was quite a turn from Pellman there.
I would have preferred to do that in the other order, though, then, right? Because doesn't it go third from the top? I'd love for you to redraw Fanatic this turn, so I would have wanted to oust before milling you for 2.
It might just be second from the top.
Okay. Been a while, don't remember the exact placement of it. But...
Yeah, I mean, I had it cast against me and don't remember what it did, so. Some graveyard checking here. I'm not sure for what. I mean, I guess
it
Tameo,
most likely
but...
dig through time or Tameo. Looks like dig, though.
Just Jace.
Oh, no, Jace. That is the other card that requires a graveyard check, I suppose.
Which Jace does threaten another flash next turn for the Atraxa that we saw.
Okay, yeah, so we sent everybody at Jace there, so he, again, eats a token, and we get through with just enough to finish off the Planeswalker. Now, Pellman untaps. He still has 1 clue on the board that he can use to dig for more stuff, but also Portable Hole, which gets another clue. Those clues sacrifice for 1 mana as well, given that the Gadgeteer's in play.
My Jace flash plan has been ruined.
Yeah, but he draws with the 2 clues he had and just passes back, so maybe he's flooding out a little bit.
So we're bestowing on the bird here.
Interesting.
Well, I would say that the plan here is to just cast this Atraxa. And this lets us do it next turn. Without any intervention, which, I mean, there's been plenty of that so far, so nothing to say that, there won't be, but...
Right. Just getting a copy token there for the bird.
Yeah, bit off screen, it looks like, but... Soldiers continue marching in.
Did the bird just come down this turn?
It did not. I know exactly what happened that turn, and I realized it about right now when I was drawing my card, which is I do have Dig Through Time in my hand, and I wanted to cast it and just forgot about it.
Ah, okay.
So
because I was pretty sure it had a point of power now. So
yeah, it could have attacked, but yeah, this was the I do remember having Dig Through Time, just forgetting to cast it. I believe he spent a little bit of time in the tank on his turn. So
did we miss a Sacroling last turn too?
No, there's a copy of the bird.
Copy.
It's just slightly off screen on the top. There, you can see it now.
Going for Vaultborn Tyrant instead.
Tyrant a bit more resilient, although in the face of exile effects, not so much, but does allow us to draw an extra card when we play Atraxa, I guess. It's like another turn of a bit of wheel spinning from Pellman.
Right. With Jace gone, who's to say how likely a win is going to be easily put together from Pellman's side? Playing him in the 1-0 bracket implies that he's got some ability to put stuff together, but so far, just wheel spinning.
Impressive amount of spinning wheels. I mean, he is drawing 5, 6, 7 extra cards just off clues, like playing artifacts. I mean, you can imagine all these same draws, just 1 card at a turn. He would be buried,
Right. It's hard to imagine what's in his hand since he played Mindstone, drew a card off that, popped Mindstone, or made a clue off that, which he drew a card off of, and then drew a card off the Mindstone, and nothing more to play.
It's like a land and a snake or an insect got made there. No hoof or anything, unfortunately, but Oko.
Interesting. I was wondering what we were doing before combat here. Oko makes sense. Are you considering if it resolves, just making one of your?
Yeah, make one of the soldiers bigger.
We're gonna see one of those cards that was stuck in Pellman's hand.
4 mana. Wandering Emperor. Okay.
That's a brutal one. Doesn't get the Vaultborn trigger and would gain 2 life.
Oh wow, the Talon Gates.
Yeah, so another turn of not attacking with the birds. To keep the Talon Gate up.
Denies the 2 life gain, which could be relevant, though it looks like next turn lethal wouldn't be that hard to put together.
Not sure if the life totals were off there or what, but down to 2 life.
Oh, wow. Okay, so
the tyrant
plays a third
damage,
piece of power.
Yeah, so like I'm saying, really unfair.
Yeah, but you're putting up a good fight against all of it.
Thinking that looks like Urza mana.
Yeah.
So that construct is currently a 2/3/4 4/4 with the Mox Emerald.
Not on its own enough to stop lethal from coming through, though. I guess Wandering Emperor could cash in for a guy. I think that puts up enough blockers, though.
Well, the Tyrant has trample, so.
Oh, right. We're not big enough
here
to stop that.
And we have 7 mana left after this Urza, so we have at least 1 spin.
Well, here it comes. He offered the cut, and I told him I didn't want to be responsible for whatever came out of it, so.
Seed Shark's another blocker. Wandering Emperor can make another blocker.
It's certainly not nothing. To see, have to imagine that, there's just a samurai coming. I was doing
Core Tyrant having trample seems like the biggest issue here. Given all the rest of your creatures, it might make it hard for him to block every point that he needs to.
Yeah,
but
given
that's
the way
a lot of
that,
math. So
the way that turn went, I was
especially
kind of spooked of like a Solitude or a Swords or something.
And Oko can swap things to take away a blocker, right?
Yeah. Silly me counting things when math is for blockers, honestly, but.
Well, if you're going to use Oko beforehand, you would need to make sure. Because you could always tap your bird token for mana and then swap it with one of his blockers.
Looks to be exactly what's happening, yeah. Swapping a tapped bird for a Seed Shark.
Yeah, it's a nice play, and Pellman scoops it up. All right, so up a game, but Pellman displaying some incredibly powerful cards in his deck. I got to imagine you're feeling at least a little bit nervous about those.
Yeah, slightly spooked. On a mulligan here, it looks like. Just one.
Especially since he ended the game with like 7 cards in hand, it looked like. Have to imagine that very close game probably was unlucky from his side, though your mana also didn't cooperate fully at the beginning of the game. But
was that an end step once upon a time?
Yes.
Okay, you got to draw your card, bud.
Huh?
You just draw your card and then play it before you play any cards on your turn. You just get one more card worth of information.
My man Dork got put in a hole this time. Very rude.
That is rude. And you mulliganed like that. Come on.
Yeah.
And he opened on Soul Ring and Ancestral. Like what is he doing, man?
It's not fair. Because like only card I can see right now is Galvanic Discharge, which isn't the most enticing thing in this matchup. Although I'd be thrilled if he had played another Gadgeteer. Unfortunately, he played a Relic of Sauron, which...
Could have played that into Gadgeteer, but not quite.
Mm-hmm. Devoted Druid. Looks like Nissa, Escape to the Wilds.
Nissa could be the explosiveness to get back into this game where it feels like, even though there's nothing on board, does feel like the inevitability is on Pellman's side.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have these like mana intensive draws that you keep because of the speed at which you put these artifacts into play, and then they just sort of peter out, like we saw last game where he didn't really draw any business. This Urza is a clear signal that is not what's going to happen in this game.
For sure.
Though passing the turn despite having 6 mana available to him.
Yeah, so looks like we're probably trying to go for Nissa here.
Yeah, to me, the passing the turn there reads instant.
Yeah, so he's responding
to
Wandering
Emperor.
Trigger.
Very nice.
Yeah, which is really just back-breaking.
Yeah.
Just have nothing to do with our mana this turn instead. Thankfully,
and
Mana Bird's gone.
Right, I assume you kill the Devoted Druid in response to stop Pellman from gaining 2 life.
No life gain there.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically your lands should be untapped here because you just tap for a green and then untap, and you don't have to tap your other lands to do that. But your deck also not heavy on instants. Although, I mean, you do have a Galvanic Discharge in your hand.
Yeah, not really effective here. Although
it could have killed the Wandering Emperor.
Yeah.
So,
that's okay. We live and we learn.
But yeah, this game very quickly spiraling out of control.
Again, every time Pellman takes a minute to think before playing the Mots, it's got to be terrifying because it just speaks to so many options.
Right.
There's the Gadget Boy.
The post-Mox Gadgeteer, but
yeah, the sequencing was not great, but
yeah.
Sure.
Right. Maybe he forgot that he was going to have blue mana up still after that because of the Mots tapping, or Urza being able to tap the Mots for blue, because we've seen he does have some degree of interaction, but...
Yeah, so the double mulligan here did not feel good.
And
how did it feel when he played?
Explosive start. Yeah. Oh my goodness. If this is a turn 2 Urza to make use of those clues that Tamio's going to make, I don't know. I might be out of here faster than Brian was in the first match.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this hand had a natural order in it, if I recall. It looks like natural order Nissa in another land, so...
But no turn 1 Dork to make that.
No Dork on it. Yeah.
Mana Vault.
Meanwhile, an embarrassment of riches of mana on the other side of the table.
Surprised not to see the clue cracked during Pellman's turn.
Or Instep, even.
Interesting.
Well, if he has nothing else, he can flip Tamio this turn now, right?
That is
we're setting
true.
A flip.
Though
okay.
I don't know if that's even better for him at this stage than just making more clues. Like, if he truly has nothing else to do. Maybe searching for another blue for Urza turned the clues into more mana. The mana doesn't seem to be the bottleneck. I think I did see an Urza when his hand tipped forward there for a second.
Yeah, so maybe colored mana is a consideration, but yeah, just wanting to get the Planeswalker in play.
Yeah, it makes me think that, especially because of the way he agonized over doing it, makes me think that Flip Tamio wasn't maybe necessarily the plan. Yeah, I'm fairly confident that's an Urza far right of Pellman's hand.
Deck continuing
So
to feed me lands, not
one
creatures that
land
I can
away
turn
from
into
casting
natural
that,
orders.
but get to cast the Nissa next turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do have the Talon Gates, so
And if you did draw a 1-mana dork, you could always cast it and the natural order together next turn.
staring down just 3, 4, 5, 8 mana here.
Yeah. Maybe just getting lucky that only one of it's blue, though.
There's the Gadget Man again.
There's double blue for next turn. Don't think he's made a land drop yet, so he could crack that now, or leave it to be more mana next turn. Okay. I assume, since he didn't crack it looking for a land there, that we won't see it cracked on end step, but we will see.
It's going to be your first play of the game here with Nissa on 5.
Yeah, just our, turn 5 curving out into our first play of the game.
Yeah. Not what I'd call an optimal draw, but, sometimes you mulligan twice.
Yeah. Okay, so
Blood Raid.
Challenger.
Okay.
And there's a bird.
And this can deal a good amount of damage to the Tameo if you want.
No more lives, though.
Oh, never mind.
But we still did end up with a green creature in play, so it turns our natural order on. So, some progress. Not untapping the mana vault seems exactly fine.
Yeah, the No More Lies especially devastating. Nothing in the graveyard right now, but can't even escape that guy later, potentially. But I believe the issue here is going to become that he can just pick that No More Lies back up. And without a land, we're still a bit short of being able to natural order. Oh, and our bird is in a hole.
And if he does have Urza, he casts that off the Relic and Soul Ring, picks up the No More Lies, and gets to pretty much run away with the game.
He does need another white source to do that.
Oh, is that not
exactly
a white source?
No, it's Mox Emerald.
That's the Mox Emerald.
Ah.
Yeah.
Rearranging his permanents, not what I wanted to see here, really, but, The Gadgeteer attack.
This is just an Urza spin.
Sure. Yep.
Why not at this point?
Decide to cut this time.
Yeah, to my doom. Yeah.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, this is why I never cut on Urza.
Which can untap blue and white, so now getting back No More Lies. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, which can't cast Nissa now. We don't have a creature for natural order. Yeah, so we're just done here. Yep. Yeah, kind of an unpleasant way to end that match, but you're on a mulligan to 5 on the play.
Well, yeah, and looking at Pellman's deck, I mean, mulligan to 5 is unfortunate, and you have fast draws potentially, but wow, what a powerhouse that you were up against. Yeah, there's no shame in losing to all those cards.
And I assume, seeing the quality of the rest of the cards, I assume Jace is not in the deck just as a draw engine. I assume it's doing more in there, maybe. So there's a chance there's another powerful busted thing his deck can do that we didn't even get to see there in those wins.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at his whole deck here. And yeah, I mean, you can kind of see there's a lot of I mean, he's not casting Doomsday or Thassa's Oracle or anything, but I think you can see where that Jace could potentially win you the game. Plenty
Okay.
of plenty of
Look at the
card
amount
draw.
of premium vintage cube cards are just in this
Yeah.
deck, right? Mox Emerald,
Right.
Ancestral Recall, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Tameo maybe. Balance is great. Hull Breacher is great. He's got
One
free
Ring.
counter magic and force negation. He's got the One Ring. I mean, Urza, like it's just unbelievably powerful.
Really
What a
not
fantastic
sure.
deck.
Not sure you could draw up a much more ideal blue-white deck in the vintage cube. I mean, you could shift a few things here and there, but
And while it looks like there maybe isn't any combo with Jace, it is a good outlet for all the blue mana he's making off Urza. But the thing that was right was there's a lot of cards in here that are very good against you that we didn't see. From Balance to Wrath of God would have been very impactful on the game that he lost. Containment Priest to shut down Flash. The One Ring to dig him out of failing to find action. Like there, a lot of the scarier cards in the matchup he didn't even draw necessarily.
right. But yeah, plenty of
This
plenty of
draft on the day.
very potent cards here. So yeah, no shame in the loss, but
We saw a Gadgeteer paired with Urza in that match, but it looks like it, and Tameo to some extent, even though those clues ended up getting popped. But we see Chromho Sea Shark and I guess Hull Breacher as other things that combo with Urza's tap ability. The Hull Breacher one being the loosest just because they could have already tapped for mana, but then Urza allows them to stick around. Very cool deck. So he's 2-0. Should we take a look at the deck of the person challenging him as the king of the hill at the top?
yeah, let's take a look at Spurlock's deck. This another quite potent pile of cards, another multiple pieces of power deck. There were definitely a few people at the table dipping into the reanimator pool of cards. I believe Brian had a few that he ended up not playing. If I remember correctly, was it you, Scott, who had a few of them?
It's not in this draft, so no.
You were not in this draft. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't
this was
remember.
the first week of our new season, and we had 12 players. So we split off into a 4-person tuber, and then we had an 8-man vintage cube draft, which is what you're watching now.
Yeah. So we definitely had Brian, who was a partially black deck. We have a second black drafter, and then there was a third player who I believe was actually almost mono black. So a lot of fighting going, and still a very dense selection of those cards here. That sneak attack that I let get away ended up here, and probably an equally good home.
Yeah, and it looks like just a very solid black-red reanimator style deck. We're lightly touching blue for brainstorm and miscalculation, which, it's not my favorite couple of splashes in the world, but, you got to play what you draft.
This deck has some of my favorite gut splashes in it, where we have Blood Tithe Harvester for the maximum aggro kind of gut, being a 3-2 and being able to sacrifice the blood. Chaos Defiler is the top end of gut to blow up 2 permanents, and then Tintad Prism to use up and then throw away. This seems like a primo gut deck on top of the very powerful reanimator package it already has, and the power it has to ramp into its strategy and just good mid game very quickly, because Priest, Headliner Scarlet, and Chaos Defiler, as well as Gut, if those cards come out a turn or two early, that puts on a lot of pressure, especially if your opponent's trying to keep stuff back to maybe be prepared for you to reanimate stuff.
You also shouldn't discount the removal. We have a few premium pieces of removal and other interaction in the form of Thoughtseize and Colligan's Command. And not for nothing, this isn't a huge thing, but we do have a life death and a tiny little green source in Ketria Triome, so maybe that came up for him at some point in the draft. I don't know.
Yep, not sure, but we can check out his match versus Pellman next.
For the trophy,
So Pellman kept his seat. We just took a look at Spurlock's deck. Let's see what they can get up to, as looks like both players are keeping their 7s.
It appears so.
Yeah, and we've got like we just said, 2 powerhouse decks facing off for the first finals of our new season here.
Spurlock leading on a Thoughtseize.
Pellman showing an extremely reasonable, but not as broken as his deck can have, opener here.
Right, and if Spurlock has one of his fast hands, I assume we just take the No More Lies, say the way's clear, but taking Tamiyo implies we might be in for a slightly slower game.
Yeah, that also signals to me that he doesn't have a ton or any removal in his hand. You know, he might have one piece that he wants to save for the shark, or none would be my guess.
Right, only a couple pieces of interaction in his deck that can answer it. I think it's just Fatal Push, Flame Slash, and a Dismember.
Dismember, yeah.
There. Okay, so 3 pieces that could hit the Tamiyo. Maybe slightly less than you'd normally expect from a black-red deck.
Yeah, and Pellman drew Mox Emerald, which sped up his start quite a bit, allowing him to play a Talisman on turn 1. Spurlock just with a second land, and we're thinking a bit.
And maybe even if he does have a strong hand, he is putting Pellman in a slightly awkward spot of knowing that he wants to tap out for that Talisman and Chrome Host Seed Shark. He would have preferred this turn the Talisman, next turn the Seed Shark, but maybe expects that he'll have a couple of turns window where the No More Lies won't even be available.
Yeah, but I do think it's a safe pass here. You know, if your opponent is going to play into the face-up counterspell, then you can do that now. And if he's not going to, you can untap, play Shark, and still have your counterspell up, given that we have 2 blue sources.
Seeing Odawara be the land played last turn from Spurlock, I assume there might not be another land.
Yeah, so maybe a bit bottlenecked on red here, as it looks like we're using the Pentad Prison to play the Blood Tithe Harvester, which might have been the reason for his slight hesitation in keeping this hand, but
You have to imagine both those lands were in the opener and just has not managed to find another one.
Yeah, and given that, I might be interested in cracking a blood immediately. Although if he is setting up to discard a large creature to reanimate, I can see why he wanted to wait on that, giving his opponent less time to react to that potential line.
Right, but from face-up information, he should know that the most likely play he's going to be up against is cast Seed Shark, leave up No More Lies. So this was the telegraphed play. Let's see if Spurlock has any answer to it. Does do the blood now, so not doing so on his turn means he doesn't have the opportunity to make a land drop, but Gristlebrand in the yard.
The Gristlebrand.
If he has maybe Dark Ritual into one of his reanimating effects, then that could let him get around the No More Lies. Otherwise, not quite enough mana.
I love Dark Ritual to pay for a Mana Leak or No More Lies. Nobody ever sees that coming. It's beautiful. All right, we found land 3.
Yeah, still no red land, though. We have something. Gonna have to try to slog through the counterspell at some point.
Dismember. Full price Dismember.
Full price Dismember.
Hard cast into the No More Lies.
I wonder if the reason for hard casting it is just to try to get the No More Lies.
Yeah, is this a bait? Are we setting up Dark Ritual into reanimate?
Or even just ready to reanimate next turn. Gets deal 3 here. No reason to let Pellman go to his turn, put a spell on the stack, and get an extra Seed Shark trigger.
For sure. I love main phase here. I'm just not wild about tapping 3 lands to play it.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be just a bit of a bait, but set off the right alarm bells apparently.
Well,
Yeah,
also
Pillman.
it speaks to several red cards possibly being in Spurlock's hand. He
Yeah,
does have plenty of red
entirely possible. He just
spells.
had nothing else to do. Yeah.
Elman's turn was rather quick, so gotta imagine it's not just No More Lies that's being held up here.
Blood Tithe Harvester getting in there again.
From when we looked at Pellman's deck, he had a couple of 3-drop flash creatures. I would not be surprised to see one of those come down here at end of turn. 4 mana instead. Wandering Emperor, the flash creature we saw plenty of last match.
Just gonna exile the Harvester. It's like a Chaos Defiler and a Headliner Scarlet in hand for sure. Didn't see what the other 2 cards were. Yeah, definitely not where Spurlock would prefer to be at this point. Still staring at this No More Lies.
Dangerous
Oh,
brainstorm.
no.
But looks like it might just get might trade for this No More Lies. I don't really like that though. Oh,
No,
this
no,
must
no.
be
This
Hull
is Hull
Breacher.
Breacher.
Yeah.
Much worse, yeah.
Well, that's just game though. We get to move on, presumably. I don't know if Spurlock has the gumption to still keep playing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, put 2 cards on top of your deck. I will gain 3 treasures.
This is a spot, to put it mildly, where Brian would just concede immediately. I feel safe saying that.
I was going to say, I can't imagine still playing the game in the face of that, but...
Spurlock did take a mulligan, but I do see a Blood Crypt this time, so a bit of a better mana situation, it seems.
Right. Again, the blue is just his splash color, so he was fully off one of his 2 main colors last game.
Hellman not letting up for a second, opening on Soul Ring into Talisman.
Unlike in the last match, though, Spurlock does have his own power in his deck. Maybe we could hope to see an explosive turn back from Spurlock, though thinking this long, Blood Crypt tapped pass, not a sign of strength, and the hits keep coming from Pellman. Ancestral end of turn, reload.
Block always does have the ability to just, entomb, untap, reanimate something. So he's never going to be just fully out of a game. But this start from Pellman, after being up a game already, is just brutal.
Yeah.
Though this tap out does speak to maybe a potential weakness to Pellman's hand, because we saw Wandering Emperor, we saw Wandering Emperor and Hull Breacher last game. Tidebinder's also good against most of the stuff that would get reanimated, so none of the flash cards potentially going to interact here. A chance that he has Wandering Emperor in hand and just didn't have the other white source for it. But
yep, and Pellman wisely choosing to mill himself, not wanting to give Spurlock a free avenue to dump a large creature into the graveyard.
that's true. We did see him default to milling Prose last match, even though it was potentially helpful for Prose. In that case, he knows it's helpful for Spurlock here, so willing to lose some of his own cards. Has no way to recur any of his cards besides Tameo is the only one I'm seeing looking back at the list, but
Snapcaster Mage for the few things that
Oh, yes.
can go again. But so many of them are. I mean, Wandering Emperor is a planeswalker. Tidebinder's a creature,
Tameo.
Containment Priest.
More artifact mana as well. Spurlock passed the turn without making a play here, so hopefully we've got some kind of instant here. Oh, just that Dismember again.
Man, looks to have been a rather unfortunate weak draw from Swirlock again this game, as Jace just continuing to get more cards for Pelman, who has already cast Ancestral this game, has plenty to work with in hand. Just needs the game to go long enough for him to deploy and dig to all of his more powerful cards.
There's an Animate Dead. I assume on the Tameo?
Right. Gadgeteer doesn't make much sense.
Well, he did. I do think he has a Mox in his hand, so maybe tempting, but Tameo just seems all around.
I mean.
Oh, the Containment Priest.
Just another backbreaker. Having just spent the Dismember also. Wow.
We confirmed by the Tameo getting exiled. It was the one that was targeted, but a couple of good cards going to the graveyard in Hullbreacher and Teferi. That looks like Urza mana again. Oh no, sorry.
Nope,
Relic. Just Relic. I do think that Pellman is like one more solid business card away from just putting this game in the dirt. He's so far ahead as it is. The only saving grace Spurlock has is that he's only being pressured by a 2/2.
But Spurlock's got to look at 7 open mana and say, well, he's got to have something more.
It's not for nothing that Pellman is chewing through 6 cards a turn as well with this Jace on the table.
Yeah, and even more now with this Relic.
That's what I mean. It's 2 from the Relic, 3 from Jace, plus his card for turn. I mean, I don't know what his library count is currently, but
yeah, the Jace -8 to win the game seems like it could be a plan for Pellman at this point. Although when you're this far ahead in the game, you can win with a ham sandwich. It doesn't really matter what you're closing out with.
yeah, the window on Spurlock's side seems to be closing rather quickly. Not even sure what he can do at this point with the Containment Priest in play. Preacher of the Schism.
It would have to probably be some wild sequence. You said you saw Mott's in his hand. If we could see like Bitter Reunion into Reanimate effect and to immediately attack with an Archon or something like that, that is the way to like make a big swing. But
what if instead your opponent drew 3 more cards on your end step? It's like he's snapcastering the Ancestral Vision here. Or
and again,
recall, excuse me.
The line I described doesn't even work because Containment Priest is still in play.
And a Wandering Emperor for good measure.
This
would be about the point in the game where I would concede.
Yeah, hard to walk away in the 3-0 match. I understand, but
well, also, unlike last game where it was going to maybe take a while to lose, this game will not take long to lose. Might as well see it out to its conclusion because you're only having to stick around for one more turn.
Yeah, I mean, barring some crazy sideboard plan, I don't see much in Spurlock's deck that can dig out of a hole like this, unfortunately. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
So activate Relic, Alt Jace.
Would not have predicted a -8 Jace to win the game in the finals of our first Vintage Cube draft of the season, but pretty exciting thing to see.
Yeah, and I think too is that I think you hear that and assume that you've played some long grindy game, but like you said, I mean, he's just been drawing 3 cards for basically every turn of this game, and at least 3 cards.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
well
so
done,
Pellman.
Pellman securing our first 3-0 of the season.
With what seemed like interaction despair in hand, I imagine the turn he cast Containment Priest, he probably also had Wandering Emperor available, but Containment Priest was just a more effective answer. So at no point did he seem like he only had 1 or 2 things to do, even though the mana maybe was left up making it look that way.
Prose, how did you close out your draft? I know we saw 2 of your matches, and you were at 1-1 at that point.
I did manage to win my 3rd match. I believe it was against Bats, so managed to take that one down in 2 games that were pretty similar to how the first match went. So the deck just didn't want to cooperate in round 2, and that's okay.
So a solid 2-1 to start the season for our president.
Yeah. No complaints, but
It seems like if that deck was going to lose after watching it draft, it makes sense that the very interaction heavy deck with main deck Containment Priest would be the deck that it would have lost to. So maybe just a bit unfortunate the way the bracket ended up working out, though. No one was getting through Pellman this time.
yeah, that is quite the buzzsaw that he put together there. We'll see if he can keep it up next time. So that wraps up our coverage of the first draft of the season. Congrats again to Pellman for securing the first 3-0 of Season 4. Let's take a look at the overall scoreboard after the first day. Like we mentioned before, there were 3 drafts today, 1 4-man draft going on at the same time as this Vintage Cube draft, as well as a second 8-man draft of Brian's Desert Cube. We see after that Pellman is out to a strong lead on the season, 3-0ing the second draft he was in as well, followed up by a couple of 4-win gamers in Joey and Scott, and then a bunch of us at 3 and 2 wins. Just to give a quick idea of how that translates into the seeding for the Cube Invitational, this would be the current list of invites, with Pellman, Joey, Scott, and Armstrong taking the top 4 seeds based on their top finishes, while Prose, Levi, Spurlock, and Matt round out the 8 members just based on overall match wins. The red names in each of these columns indicate the members closest to overtaking the lowest member in that category. That will wrap up our coverage for today. As always, you can find links to our Discord and social media in the description below. Thank you again for watching, and we hope you come back next time.